There are just so many convergences, I think, whether you're looking at huge cycles of time, the end of the precessional cycle, 24,000 years, whether you're looking at the fact that the Earth is moving through the galactic current sheet, that only happens every 12,000 years, give or take 500, the fact that we're at the end of the descending Yuga cycle, which is also 12,000 years, the fact that Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness, is going to end, according to Bibu Dev Misra, who's a great scholar with this, in March, in 2 months' time. Whether you're looking at solar cycles, which are smaller, 11 to 12-year cycles, we're at the peak of solar cycle 25. Whether you're looking at the fact that in the next 15 months, all of the outer planets are going to be changing sign. That hasn't happened for 300 years, but if you add in the dwarf planets that are changing sign, the deep space planets, I can't find a time in history when that's happened. We also have a conjunction between Saturn and Neptune at 0 of Aries, the most important degree in the zodiac, the creator degree, the very first beginning. That hasn't happened for over 12,000 years at 0 degrees of Aries. So, you start to put, and many more. So you start to put all of these layers together, these convergences, and it just becomes quite mind-blowing. And then you've also got the game changers. Like I think we're going to have a lot more galactic connection. That's indicated in the astrology. We also are going through, I think, a huge biological shift to become what's called the new human or the future human. That's another huge game changer, which again is unique in our history as humanity. So, you put together all of these things and they're all converging principally in 2025. This is really quite remarkable. So the peak is happening this year. So it will be turbulent, it will be fast, it will be dynamic, it will be at times chaotic. It's got whitewater rafting through all of these changes. But it's very exciting because we really are shifting to a very different state of being, a very different reality. But it's us that makes it happen. It's us that makes it happen. And we have more of a blank slate, I think, than we have ever had before, because in our lives, there was a very, predictable, you'd go to school, you'd go to college, you'd meet someone, you'd get married, you'd get a good job, you'd have kids, you'd have a house. It was a pretty predictable kind of life map. That's up for grabs now. It's not going to be that way in future. It's going to be very different. And so all of these things, almost every aspect of our life is changing all at once, both individually and collectively. And so you can look at that as kind of, that's a really, really big, scary thing, and very destabilizing. Or you can say, we're on the ride of our lives. This is so exciting. We came for this. Our souls chose to be here for this moment. We have front row seats of what's going to unfold as the new human.
It's really fascinating as well because I've been through some shifts and we were talking about them recently, and I can feel the frequency of nervousness in my field. Sometimes I can feel like, oh, I'm nervous about what's next. And I literally have been playing this game because we've got Paul Check coming up on the podcast tomorrow morning, and he's got this really beautiful yin and yang coin that he has, and he's handmade it a little bit, and it's got this certain weight to it. And he does this game with himself where one side's black and the other side's white, and he literally just flips it over, and he uses it as a neurological remapping tool. In true Paul Check fashion. And he goes, just flip it over and notice excitement, and just flip it back and it's nervousness, and just flip it back and it's excitement. And it was like, and I've just been playing, and I don't even have the coin. I'm just visually doing it in my mind, and I'm just watching how I can play with the frequency.
That is spot on, Amrit. In fact, I was saying that, I think, just a few days ago in an interview with someone, because it's the same kind of jazzed up feeling. And with Pluto in Aquarius is a very jazzed up sign. It's higher mind, but it's very intense and it's very fast. So yeah, you can either get mentally jazzed up with all of the input. There's going to be so many distractions and zigzags, and look over here and look over there, and a lot of input coming in. Or you can just say, I'm not going to listen to all of that. I'm going to refer to my own internal compass, and I'm going to be excited about what I create. Because that's where we're at right now. Much, much greater potential for manifestation and creation.
You mentioned also that it's a fast year, and so there's a lot of these frequencies that are coming through at a rapid rate. Does it also mean that we experience time moving through faster? Like at the time of this recording, I'm kind of surprised that a month's already passed in 2025.
Yes, 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 so am I. Yes, it's moving very, very quickly. In fact, way back in March 2023, when Saturn was moving into Pisces, I did a video about that. And Saturn is linear time and Pisces dissolves. And so one of the reasons we feel that time is moving faster is as we are shifting out of 3D-ness, linear time density is dissolving, and that's why we have these feelings of that things are speeding up. Ultimately, we know that in the real world, as it were, there is no time. Things are cyclical. There's only ever the present. But the other reason we feel time is speeding up is the outer planets are all moving from earth and water signs, heavy, slow, dense, to do with permanency, into air and fire. Think a plane goes faster than a boat. Air is quicker than water. So air and fire are fast. They move really quickly. So the fact the energies are much more linked to air and fire as we move into the next 15 months also speeds everything up. In our old lives, we'd have a job for life, a home for life, a long-term car, that kind of thing. That's all changing. Partly because of AI and robotics, and those repetitive jobs are going to be changing. That changes the whole socio-economic structure as well, with big questions as we move forwards. But it's a feeling of experiences are going to become much more valuable. Innovation, novelty, those kinds of things are going to be much more important than I'm in this job working at the bank 9 to 5 for my life. It's a very different set of experiences coming up.
With all the convergences and all these different experiences coming up, it's interesting because I remember last time we spoke, the impression that was left upon me was just the language of astrology, and it was so profound, the impact that it left on me. And thank you for that. And that was such an incredible episode, even if I can share in myself.
Oh, it was great. I think it was my best ever, actually.
Touch wood. Thank you. You're too kind. The interesting thing around there is I remember you also saying there's a lot of predictive analysis that occurs from looking back in the past. But when there's so many things all coalescing at the same time, how do you look back and how do you even use predictive analysis as a thing?
Well, in a way, that's kind of like economics or meteorology, that you can look back and say the previous time that this is what happened. And in the past, myself included in this, all astrologers do that. So we look, if we take something like Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto has a 248-year orbit, as you probably know, Amrit. So you can get, I did a big historical analysis of going back to the 1200s and then the 1500s, and then the latest period when Pluto was in Aquarius was from 1777 to 1798. So you look at all of those periods and say, okay, what were the commonalities? What were the similarities? In every case, there was a sense of the abuse of power from the top, whether it was the church or an autocratic monarchy or whatever. And ultimately, because Aquarius is the sign of revolution and freedom and humanity, humanitarianism, people rebelled. I mean, it's often spoken about, the most dramatic example of that was the French Revolution in 1789, July 1789, when the peasants who couldn't even afford to buy bread stormed the Bastille, took down the monarchy. The monarch was beheaded, and that was the end of monarchy in Europe, in France anyway. And that began a process of democracy across Europe. So, we can look at this, and in a way, we're going to have some similar things happening this time around. But because other things are happening, it isn't just same old, same old. We're going to have a lot more galactic connection. That's happening already, a lot more galactic communication. There's some beautiful examples of that. We're galactic beings as well. We're reuniting with our galactic family. We are changing biologically. That hasn't happened in many, many lifetimes, but I think possibly ever to the degree it's going to happen this time around. So you can look back to old cycles and take the themes of those, which I've done, and say, let us make an intelligent, educated guess to what's going to happen in today's society. But because you've got the game changers, you're dealing with a different landscape now. And you've got to take those into account. And they're unknowns, in a way. They're complete unknowns for an astrologer, because we haven't done this before.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.